right, hello everyone and welcome. We're going to give just a quick 15 seconds or so to make sure everyone can get logged on here. So thank you for joining us. You've made it to the right place if you're here for University of Michigan. My name's Hannah and I am the facilitator for today. So I'm just gonna go over a few housekeeping things with everyone today before I turn it over to University of Michigan. First of all, welcome to the Virtual College Exploration for all Ohio students, and this is sponsored by the Ohio Association for College Admissions Counseling and StriveScan, so we're really excited about this partnership to be able to put this on for everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. A few housekeeping things just before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions during the presentation at any time, and they may type an answer back to you, or they may wait and answer the question at the end. So just bear with them. I promise they're seeing your questions. Your camera and your microphone are off, so we do not see you or hear you at all, but you should be able to both see and hear us. And then this is just one of the sessions that are happening through this whole big virtual event through OACAC. So you can check out all the sessions at oacac.org. And then in addition, all of them are being recorded. So if you missed a few that you might be interested in, or maybe you missed something that they're talking about today with the University of Michigan, you're more than welcome to go watch the recording at oacac.org, and that will be available in about a week. And that's about it. Now I'm going to turn it over to University of Michigan.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Chloe Hypes. I am the admissions counselor for students in Northern Ohio for the University of Michigan. Also a pretty recent University of Michigan graduate. Finished my undergraduate degree in 2019 in environmental science. Also joined by my colleague Brian. I'll give him a chance to introduce himself.
Hey everybody, my name is Brian Cusack. I'm also an admissions counselor at the University of Michigan. I got my graduate degree from the university back in 2018, and I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. So I'm the rep for all students in Ohio who live in Columbus or farther south.
Great. So today we're just going to give you a brief presentation about kind of some student life and overview about U of M academics, and then Brian is going to kind of walk you through the application process, and then we're going to have a bit of time at the end for question and answers. So again, feel free to put some questions in the Q&A for us. Myself or Brian may respond to you, but we'll probably answer most of them at the end of the presentation. So to kick us off, you really cannot talk about the University of Michigan without talking about the city of Ann Arbor. The University of Michigan has been in Ann Arbor for almost 200 years. So obviously, as the University of Michigan has been growing, the city of Ann Arbor has been growing too. And this has led to them kind of being really intertwined. So what that means for you is, as an undergraduate student on our campus, you are going to be taking class right next to the areas that you're going to be doing all of your things outside of class, right? Going to fun restaurants and movie theaters and shops and different music festivals, art festivals. All of that is taking place downtown right next to where you're going to be taking classes. We also have a lot to do in nature, if that's something you're more interested in. We have Nichols Arboretum, where you could go take a hike. We also have the Huron River. People love to tube down there when it is especially warm during the summer. I also want to tell you a little bit about the people you're going to find living on our campus. So we do have undergraduate students from all 50 states, as well as every single county in Michigan. We also have students from over 120 international countries. So what this means for you is you are going to be living and learning with people that have a lot of different perspectives than you. I think this is a really important part of the University of Michigan experience. When I was a student, it really made my course discussions more diverse and well-rounded, having students from all over with different perspectives and different backgrounds. This also means that our alumni base is extremely diverse. We have one of the largest living alumni bases in the world, over 630,000 living alumni, which is just a great resource for you both as a student and post-graduation. Michigan alums are everywhere. Obviously, a lot of them are going to move back home, and they come from everywhere, right? So you will never be in a different location or applying for a job where you won't have some sort of U of M alum connection. Another opportunity that will be available to every single undergraduate student that we like to highlight is research. We are the #1 public research university in the US. So what that means is we have a lot of money invested in research at higher levels. A lot of your professors and graduate student instructors are going to be doing some of the cutting edge research in their field. So anything that you can study at Michigan, we have research going on. What that means for you is that you can get involved as soon as your freshman year. We have opportunities for both paid positions, so if you were thinking about working part-time on our campus while also gaining some actual hands-on experience you could put on a resume. We also have research opportunities that you can get involved in for credit. As you progress through your undergraduate career, there's going to be more and more opportunities for research, especially your junior and senior year, kind of leading into that. Maybe you would have a research project that you completely run on your own and do your own thesis. So lots of opportunities for research at Michigan. Another thing that every student likes to get involved in on our campus are, of course, student organizations. We have over 1,600 student organizations, and you can do literally anything here. So you could definitely do something that you're already involved in high school. We have student government type organizations. If you already play a sport, you could definitely do that at the intramural level here. Lots of different options that you're familiar with. But I also like to highlight that this is a great chance for exploration. We have all sorts of clubs that are definitely not offered at the high school level, right? And that's just because the University of Michigan is huge. So we have a lot of opportunities. There's going to be an event in the fall of your first year. You can go to Festifall. Every single student organization sets up a table, and you can go and learn more about them and sign up. A couple fun ones that I like to highlight, I was really involved with our Campus Farm organization. You can see a picture of them in the bottom left of the screen, actually. They grow their own organic food. It's completely student run, and they donate that food to local food banks, and they also serve it in the dining hall. We also have the Rock Climbing Club. They teach new climbers how to climb. They go on this really cool hiking trip every single year. Or if you're musically inclined, you can see Groove in the top of our screen. They are all percussionists, but the only instrument that they use are trash cans. So super cool. You'll see them all over campus. Just a few fun clubs, but I promise you, anything you're interested in, you can find here. Also, just like to highlight sports. University of Michigan cares a lot about sports, okay? We have 29 Division I teams, and you can go to every single sporting event for free except for men's hockey, men's basketball, and men's football. And those tickets you can get at a student rate. You can also get them discounted if you are a recipient of financial aid. So very accessible, a super fun way to experience the school spirit at Michigan. I can tell you my favorite tradition as a student was definitely going to every home football game. So just a really fun thing to be involved in on our campus. And yeah, it's a great way to get involved with school spirit. Also just want to touch on housing for a brief moment. Almost every single student coming to our campus is going to live in our University of Michigan residence halls their first year. So it is absolutely not required, but 97% of our students do choose to live in the residence hall, and it's guaranteed to you as long as you apply by the deadline. I think this is a really important part of living at Michigan. It's definitely how I met all of my friends freshman year. And if you're worried about building that community on campus, or you maybe just want to get a more specific housing placement, I would definitely suggest you check out one of our MLCs. So our MLCs, or Michigan Learning Communities, are different groups of students. You can apply to these MLCs on your housing application. And it is students who apply to certain housing groups grouped by interest. So for example, we have WISE, which is Women in Science and Engineering. These are all women in STEM who are interested in later pursuing a STEM career. They're all going to live together in Mosier Jordan Hall, take some of the same courses, and have community building events. So this is just another way to ensure that you're building community as soon as you step onto our campus. And we have them in a bunch of different subject matters, so I would highly suggest you take a look at the list on the website. Okay, so briefly before I turn it over to Brian, I do want to talk about some of the academic paths you can choose here at Michigan. When you apply to the University of Michigan, you do not apply to the entire university as a whole. You do need to choose one of our 7 first-year admitting units, and I'm going to give a brief overview of those. So the first is our oldest and largest unit. It's LSA, the College of Literature, Science, and the Arts. I was a student in LSA, and most of our students are students in LSA. And that's because they host a majority of our majors, right? So you can do anything in LSA from the natural sciences all the way through the humanities. This is also where we point students who are interested in perhaps being pre-law law, or some pre-professional field. In LSA, you are really going to get a well-rounded liberal arts degree. No matter what you choose to major in, you're going to be taking district courses in natural science, social science, the humanities, as well as 4 semesters of a foreign language on top of your core requirements for your major or minors. This is also where we're going to point you if decided or looking for a more interdisciplinary degree, and that's because LSA gives you the most opportunity for exploration. You don't need to declare a major until your junior year, and it is the easiest within LSA if you're looking to maybe do 2 different majors or maybe a combination of majors and minors. So this is our most flexible degree. It's where most of our students are going to apply. So if you're interested in Michigan, I basically want you to be thinking, okay, I'm going to apply to LSA unless I have interest in one of these next few more specific academic units. The next one is the College of Engineering, exactly what it sounds like. We have 17 different engineering majors that are very specific. You'll spend your first year doing a base level curriculum, so taking some basic math and science courses, and the majority of that degree is going to be math and science based with little room, maybe just a couple classes a year outside of that. So if you're interested in taking like primarily math and science courses, College of Engineering is probably the best fit for you. We also have the School of Nursing, exactly what it sounds like as well. You would go here if you want to be a nurse. They have 1 degree type. It is a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. Because they only have 1 degree type, it allows them to have even smaller class sizes than our average of 15:1 across all the campuses. It really allows them to give you a lot of hands-on experience with those specific courses. We also have the School of Kinesiology. Kinesiology is the study of human movement. So this is going to be the best fit for you if you are interested in getting a primarily an anatomy and physiology based degree. They do also have 1 major called sport management, and that's basically the intersection between sports and business. So also would be a great fit for you if you're interested in that very specific field. For both the School of Nursing and the School of Kinesiology, on the application, we're going to want to see some sort of demonstrated interest from you. And what that means is these are very specific schools. We want to make sure that you are interested in this very specific discipline. So just showing us maybe you job shadowed with a nurse or someone in the kinesiology field. Maybe you've done an informational interview. Maybe you run a school blood drive. Lots of different examples. Just anything on your application saying, I've done this, and that's why I know I'm interested in this field. The next 3 units are our talent-based units. So that's the School of Art and Design, the School of Music, Theater, and Dance, and the College of Architecture and Urban Planning. These, again, very specific talent-based units. These are going to be a good fit for you if you'd like to pursue a talent as a major. And you're going to submit both the common application and some sort of artistic sample to that specific unit's website, separate from your common application. One note is that you can only apply to one of these schools or colleges on your application, with the exception of if you're interested in one of our 3 talent-based units, we also allow you to apply to an academic unit, but you cannot apply to 2 academic units. So you can't apply to both LSA and engineering, for example. So just something to keep in mind as you guys start thinking about the application. One more thing I want to touch on before I turn it over to Brian are our upper level programs. So a majority of the ones you see on the screen are not going to be something you need to worry about right away. And that's because you have to be a student on our campus first. Most often these students will start in LSA, and you have to spend a year or 2 on our campus, depending on the program, taking some prerequisites before you apply to transfer in. So for example, if you're interested in being a teacher, you would come to our campus first, probably as an LSA student, take your first year of courses, completing those required prerequisites, making sure that you're staying on track, getting the minimum GPA, and then you can apply to transfer in either as a rising sophomore or a rising junior, depending on the degree. The one exception is the Ross School of Business, and I do want to touch on this because a lot of students have interest in pursuing business on our campus. The Ross School of Business has a 2-tiered admissions process, which means you can apply before you come to campus as a first-year student, but you must first be admitted to one of our other academic units. So for example, you could first apply to LSA and also say on your application that you're interested in applying to Ross via preferred admissions. What would happen is we would get your application first in our office. We're going to read your application, decide whether or not we admit you. If you are admitted to LSA, great. Then and only then would we send your application over to Ross. So should you not be admitted to LSA or whatever academic unit you apply to first, Ross will not see your application. Once we send that application over to Ross, they're going to review you just as we did, but they're also going to have the other requirement that you're going to submit to them, and that is the business portfolio. So that's just a variety of different essays as well as some examples of your work in high school showing your proficiency and interest level in business, and they review that completely on their own. So I will never see your business portfolio when you submit it. You submit it to Ross directly. They're going to review that in conjunction with your common application and give you a decision. If you're in, that's great. You can start in Ross as soon as you're on campus. If you applied through LSA, if you applied through the College of Engineering, you have to spend that first year in engineering before starting your Ross coursework in your second year. Also, one more note, if you are not admitted to the Ross School of Business, you can still keep your original seat. So you could still come to campus as an LSA student, an engineering student, whatever it is. You could apply for the Ross Business Minor if you're still interested in studying business. You could declare an economics major or minor, or pick up our entrepreneurship minor, or join one of our many business-related clubs. So a ton of different options for you to pursue business on our campus, even if it's not through getting a BBA through the Ross School of Business. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Brian so that he can tell you more about our application process.
Thanks, Chloe. So I have good news for everybody. I did successfully convince my dog to lay down, so you shouldn't hear any barking or scratching during this part of the presentation. So the first thing you should know about applying to be a Michigan Wolverine is that we accept both the common application or the coalition application. We have absolutely no preference between the two. They both ask for the same information in just a slightly different order. So again, we have no preference. If you're not sure which one to use, we just encourage you to talk to your high school guidance counselor, see if there's one that they're more familiar with, or give them both a try and see if there's one that you're more comfortable submitting. But either way is totally fine by us. Now, we have made some changes to the application process due to the current pandemic. And the first change you'll notice is that I'm at home right now. I wish my office had a window, but it doesn't. So we have been working remotely for about 6 months. And Chloe, can you flip the slide? And what that means is that all of our on-campus tours and events are canceled through at least January. We don't know if they're going to start up again in January, right? It depends on how the pandemic goes over the next couple months. But fortunately, we do not, and we have never tracked visits to campus as part of the application process. So if you're not able to come up for a formal tour, totally fine. We don't use that in the admissions process. But if you want to come up to campus and walk around and get a feel for Ann Arbor, you're certainly welcome to do so. The town itself is open, though you would not be able to access any university buildings, and a mask is required at all times. The biggest change for the application requirements has to do with test scores. Many of you have probably seen that Michigan is now test flexible, and what we mean by test flexible is if you can take the ACT or the SAT, we expect you to do so. And if you have already taken it, we want you to send us your test scores. But if you can't take it because it's getting canceled because we're in a pandemic, or frankly, if you're just not comfortable going to a testing center and being around that many other people, you can apply without a test score and you're still going to get full consideration for admission to the University of Michigan. If you have other tests you'd like to submit, like a PSAT, a pre-ACT, AP test scores, or SAT subject tests, you can send those in and we'll use them in lieu of the test itself. And if you have none of the above, again, you can apply without a test score and you're still going to get full consideration for admission to the university. New this year, you are also able to self-report your test scores. So if any of you are taking the, I think it's an October 27th SAT, don't quote me on that date, and you're going to get your electronic score report in early November, you can self-report that to us in the application, and then you do not need to send us your official score report unless you decide to attend Michigan sometime next summer. The other big change has to do with our application deadlines. So this year, our early action deadline has been moved back to November 15th. If you apply for early action, you're going to hear a decision from us no later than mid to late January, and that decision is non-binding. So if you are admitted in early action, we'd of course love to have you come to Michigan, right? That's why we admitted you in the first place. But you do have until the May 1st National Enrollment Deposit deadline to make your final college decision. If you choose not to apply for early action, our only other decision deadline is February 1st for regular decision, for which you'll get an answer from us in mid to late April. So that said, it's probably time to jump into the overall application process and what we're looking for at the University of Michigan. So last year, we received about 65,000 total applications. We have an incoming first-year class of their current students now, of just under 7,000 students. And the way that we narrow down that application pool into our incoming class of students is through a holistic and individualized review process in which every application is going to be read multiple times by multiple people, so you can be sure you're getting the fairest shake possible at admission to the University of Michigan. Now, when looking at your application, there are going to be 6 key factors that we look at. The first 3 are academic, the last 3 are more qualitative. And the academic side of things, we're going to look at your GPA, your curriculum, and your test scores, which you probably already guessed from seeing that on the screen. Well, we'll start by talking about GPA, and you can see that last year, the average GPA for an admitted student in Michigan was a 3.9. But there are 2 caveats that go with that. And the first is that we have no minimum GPA in Michigan. And the second is that this is an unweighted University of Michigan GPA. So what that means is when all of you apply, we're going to go through all of your transcripts from 9th grade to the first semester of 11th. Anytime you see an A+, A or an A-, that becomes a 4. B+, B or B- becomes a 3, and so on and so forth. And the reason that we do this is not because we're mean or we don't like weighted GPAs. It's because high schools around the country use an astronomical number of different grading scales. So recalculating your GPA helps us look at all of you on the same playing field. But we're also going to look behind that GPA to see what it can tell us about you as a student. And an example of something we look for is called a grade trend. An example of a positive grade trend could be a student who maybe coasted through middle school, then you get to 9th grade and all of a sudden you get a couple C's and a D. But by 10th grade, you figured out what this thing called studying is. Maybe you now do your homework once a week or more, and you're starting to get A's and taking advanced courses later on in high school. If that's you, your GPA is probably not a 3.9, but you still could be a very competitive applicant to the University of Michigan. And one other note about GPAs as well is that when the pandemic hit in March, I'm sure many of you went virtual and you got a lot of pass-fail grades. If you did, that's okay, as long as you're getting passing grades and not failing grades, of course. The University of Michigan also went virtual. We also went pass-fail, so we are not going to hold that against you in the review process. We're not going to calculate your pass-fail grades into your GPA. We're only going to rely on the letter grades that you have, but do know that pass-fail grades themselves are not going to hinder your application in any way. We're also going to look at the types of courses that you're taking in high school. So we expect all applicants to the University of Michigan to have a minimum of 16 core academic courses by the time you graduate high school, with the most competitive students having 20 or more. We define a core academic as math, science, social studies, humanities, foreign language, or computer science. We also want to see that you're challenging the curriculum available to you at your high school. So if your school offers you AP, IB, or honors courses, we want to see that you're taking them. Now, we by no means expect you to take all of them, but we do want you to at least take some of them and challenge yourself in your areas of academic interest. There are some required classes that you have to have when you apply to the University of Michigan. Most importantly, everybody, no matter what it is that you intend to study, needs to have 4 full years of high school English. Not 3 or 3.5, but 4 full years of English at the high school level. If you intend to apply to the College of Literature, Science, and the Arts, you also need to have 3 to 4 years each of math and science, as well as 2 years of a foreign language. But if you did say Spanish 1 in 8th grade and Spanish 2 in 9th grade, that does count as meeting that 2-year requirement, even though only one of those years is at the high school level. If you apply to the College of Engineering, you need to have 4 years of English, 4 years of math, and 4 years of science, and that needs to include calculus, chemistry, and physics if your high school offers you those courses. If they don't, then we just want to see that you have the 4 years of math and science each. If you're applying to nursing or kinesiology, again, 4 years of English. We also want to see that you have at least 3 to 4 years each of math and science. And we strongly recommend that you also take chemistry, biology, and statistics. They're not required, but they're going to be super helpful for the curriculum you're going to face in college. If you're applying to a talent program, you need to meet LSA's curricular requirements. And if you're applying to the Ross School of Business, you need to meet the first year requirements for the first year program to which you are applying. Now, I won't spend too much time on test scores since we've already talked about those, but do know the scores you see here on the screen are not minimums. These are the middle 50th percentile for admitted students last year at the University of Michigan. And when looking at test scores, we look at them within the context of your high school academic environment. So if you're somebody who has, say, a 1300 on your SAT, but you go to a school where the average SAT is a 1000, yeah, 1300 is not a 1380, but that is still a really impressive score for your high school context, and you still could be a very competitive applicant to the University of Michigan. So don't let these numbers scare you out of applying to the university. Now, the other half of that holistic process is looking at a number of qualitative factors. And the reason that we look at these is because, as I'm sure many of you know, college applications are a very self-selecting process, and the vast majority of students who apply to Michigan are going to be academically qualified to be at the University of Michigan. So in addition to your application, we also want to look at what you're going to bring to the Michigan community. And the first thing we're going to look at is your extracurricular involvement. Now, there is no one type of involvement that we prefer, that we require, or that we look for. If you do community service, if you play a sport, if you work a part-time job, care for a family member, if you're super involved in your religious community, all of those things are fantastic, and we definitely want you to tell us about them. In the application itself, you're going to be able to list 10 activities. So we encourage you to list your best 10 or list your favorite 10. And we also encourage you to use this as an opportunity to brag about your achievements in high school. So if you've won any awards or you've held any leadership positions or you've gotten any other type of recognition for the things that you've done, definitely tell us about that. Again, this is a great place to brag. The next thing we're going to look at is a teacher recommendation. And at Michigan, we only require one letter of recommendation. And I know that sounds like a trick question, but it's really not. We do only want one letter of recommendation. We would prefer it to come from an academic teacher, preferably somebody who's had you in the past 2 years as a student. But if you have someone else in your life, like a coach, a mentor, or a boss, whom you'd prefer to write that letter of recommendation for you, then by all means, please have them submit that letter of recommendation. If you would like to have more than one letter of recommendation submitted, again, you certainly can, but we do ask that any additional recommenders be able to tell us something new and something substantial about you as a student that we wouldn't already know from reading your application. And we also encourage you to be strategic about the recommenders that you choose. Because, for example, if you get an A+ in a class, and then we read your letter of recommendation and your teacher says, so-and-so is a great student, she got an A+, that's great, we're very proud of you, but we also knew that from looking at your transcript. So make sure the recommender can tell us something more that we might not necessarily already know about you as a student. Your counselor is not required to submit a letter of recommendation for you, but if you would like them to, they can. We will require your counselor to submit a school report. That tells us about the curriculum offered at your high school, the test scores at your high school, grades at your high school, and so on and so forth, and gives us that information we need to do our contextual review and really identify students who are excelling in the context of their own academic environment. Finally, the last thing you need to do to apply to Michigan is write a few essays. And the first one you're going to have to write is for the common application or the coalition application. The important thing here is you get to choose your own essay prompt, so there's literally no way for you to get this wrong as long as you actually answer the prompt that you choose. The other piece of advice that I think Chloe and I would both give you, being Ohio reps, is that it's very important to keep these essays generic because they're going to be read by every school that you apply to. So if I'm reading your common application essay and I get to the bottom and see how happy you were that a school in Columbus won the Big Ten last year, that's great. But we're going to wonder why you're applying to Michigan, right? So save your school-specific things for your school-specific essays. For Michigan specifically, there's 2 that you have to write. And when writing these essays, we really want you to keep in mind that the point of these is for us to get to know you. Because with 65,000 applications, we can't offer interviews. If we did, we'd still be working on the class of 2012. So these essays are really, they take the place of the interview for us and help us get to know you as a student and as a person. So the first essay you're going to have to write is your community essay. And here we want you to tell us about a community you consider yourself a part of, what your role in that community has been, and how those experiences have shaped you as a person and will in turn shape the University of Michigan. And we really leave community up to you to define. So if you want to talk about your family community, your religious community, your friend group from the cul-de-sac that you grew up on, if you even want to write about your Fortnite squad, all of those things could be great community essays. Because again, we want to know what's been important to you throughout your life. Finally, the last essay you're going to have to write is your Why Michigan essay. And here we don't want to read that you want to go to Michigan because you've been a Michigan football fan your whole life, because A, we're a basketball school, and B, we want to know why you want to study at the University of Michigan. So if you want to study business, or you want to study computer science, or you want to study psychology, you can do that at pretty much any school in Ohio. So why do you want to come to Michigan to do it? Do we have classes you want to take? Do we have professors you want to work with? Is there research we're doing on campus that you would like to be involved in? Tell us about the things unique to Michigan that make you want to become a Michigan Wolverine. Excuse me. One last piece of advice for this essay is that when you're done writing it, you should not be able to cut and paste the University of Michigan, put in the name of another school or college, and still have it make sense. We want it to be that specific to the University of Michigan overall. There is one additional essay that you can write. It is entirely optional, and that is the COVID-19 impact essay. So if you have been impacted by the virus, and we all have in different ways, and you want to tell us about how it's affected you either in the classroom, outside of the classroom, or affected your test scores, this is going to be the place to do it. But if you are somebody who's just tired of writing, you don't want to do another essay, you don't have to. Again, this one is entirely optional, and it's just for you to give us more context about what you've been going through for the past year. It's already been a year. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So moving on to deadlines. I've already talked about application deadlines a little bit, so we're just going to talk about financial aid really quick. To be eligible for aid at the University of Michigan, you need to, of course, apply, right? That's step number one. You also need to submit the FAFSA and the CSS profile. All three of these things serve as your automatic application for need-based aid and for some merit-based aid at the University of Michigan, which the Office of Financial Aid is going to automatically review you for. To get full scholarship consideration for the university, though, you will need to go through your admitting school or college. So LSA, engineering, Ross, nursing, kinesiology, etc., all have their own scholarships offices with different scholarship opportunities specifically for their students. However, the deadlines for these and the requirements are going to vary based on the scholarship funding source, so be sure to be checking those websites regularly to make sure you haven't missed any deadlines. The only other thing to mention that I haven't already is that if you apply for early action, you do have the possibility of being postponed. If you are postponed, that means we thought you were a competitive applicant, but we want a little bit more information from you before we make our final decision. So we are going to ask you for your first semester senior year grades, and we'll get you a decision in the regular decision period. Kelly, can you flip to the next slide? Thanks. So we do want you to stay in touch with us. We know that a lot of you haven't had the opportunity to go up to campus yet. So we do have a pretty robust virtual resources page on our website. So as you can see here, you can take a tour of campus, you can watch our virtual information session, which is the long, in-depth version of the presentation that Chloe and I gave you all today. And you also have the opportunity to sign up for a virtual post-information session Q&A with other members of our admissions team, or us, depending on the day, where we spend an hour answering any questions that you have about the University of Michigan. So if you have any follow-up questions to anything we've talked about today, please go ahead and shoot us an email. Again, if you live north of Columbus, your representative is going to be Chloe. If you live in Columbus or farther south, then you can feel free to send me an email, and I'm always happy to answer. So now we're going to move into the Q&A portion of today's session, and I'll go ahead and kick us off. So it's like we did get one question about study abroad. And the short answer is yes, you can definitely study abroad as a Michigan student. 2 years ago, before the pandemic hit and canceled everybody's study abroad programs, Michigan did rank number 6 in the country in number of students studying abroad and first overall in the Big Ten, with about 5,000 students traveling to more than 100 countries around the world. Each one of our schools and colleges has their own study abroad programs and advisors who can help you find the best program for you. By far, the largest center for study abroad on campus, though, is the Center for Global and Intercultural Study in the College of Literature, Science, and the Arts. CGIS, as we call it, runs about 90 programs on 6 different continents. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute, I really want to go to Antarctica. First of all, why? Second of all, if you really do want to go to Antarctica, we have partnered with other institutions in the past to make that a reality for Michigan students.
Thanks, Brian. I'm going to take the next question. So it looks like we have a question about the honors program. So someone asked, do you apply for the honors program as a senior? And the answer is it depends. So the first thing it depends on is which school or college you are in. So for example, if you're in the College of Engineering, their honors program follows a more traditional model where you would complete your first year, and then every single student who meets a certain minimum GPA, and as long as you took all the required courses the first year, will be invited to apply for the honors program. In LSA, it does look a little bit different because, like I mentioned before, they are a large unit, right? And often when students think about an honors program, they think that that indicates that if you're a part of the honors program, you have one of the highest GPAs on campus, you are getting the best grades in your classes, and that's just not necessarily the case. students that we admit to Michigan are generally very highly academically achieving, right? So we can't necessarily just pick the top of the class to add to the honors program. We don't really think that would be the best use of our grouping there, right? So the way you get involved with the honors program is by being really interested in diving deeper into learning. So what I mean by that is you're going to spend a little bit more time in your courses than other students. The honors option courses meet for longer. You would maybe have a research component or another discussion section. And also honors students are doing more research than any other student. So there are two ways to get involved with LSA honors. You could apply as an incoming student. So what that means is you've already been admitted to LSA. Great. Once you're admitted, you can then apply to the honors program. It is a separate application post-acceptance. If you apply to the honors program and get in that way, that's great. You could also choose to live in their optional housing in South Quad. Not every student does, but I think South Quad is a great place to live. They have the best dining hall there, so a good option for you. You're going to start doing that honors coursework as soon as you're on campus and then follow through with the honors program. The honors program also is going to have an upper level requirement that you do an honors thesis. So what that is a self-guided research project that you're going to do yourself. Should you not apply to honors your first year or you don't get admitted your first year, you could still affiliate with honors. So for example, I never applied to honors. I didn't really know it existed. And then my junior year, because I was in programming the environment, I decided I wanted to do this research thesis. It's going to look different for any LSA major that you're choosing, but should you not affiliate with honors at all until your junior or senior year and decide to do an honors thesis, that effectively affiliates you with the program, and you would graduate with honors the same as other students would if they did it all 4 years. So a couple different options there. Essentially, it is very heavily research-based. You can get involved really at any time during your academic career, either as an incoming first year or any other time once you start declaring that upper level research. Good question.
Thanks, Chloe. So we did have one student ask us to explain more about housing at the University of Michigan and what that looks like. So as you saw on the slide at the beginning of the presentation, about 97 and 98% of our first year students do live on campus. However, it's not required that you do so. If you have other housing arrangements, you have family or friends in the area whom you'd prefer to live with, you certainly can. It's not required for you to live on campus. If you do choose to live on campus, though, we guarantee housing for all first year students. In total, the university has about 9,700 beds. Of those, nearly 7,000 are reserved for first year students. Most of the rest will be for upper level students who are either residence hall advisors or who apply to live in the residence halls after their first year on campus. Though the vast majority of students after year one will move into one of the neighborhoods surrounding the University of Michigan or one of the apartment complexes you can find throughout the city of Ann Arbor. In terms of your options for housing, you do have a few. Now, overall, housing at Michigan is done blind. There's no way for you to choose what building you're going to live in. Roommates are also blind unless you and somebody else request to live with each other. And that's the important thing, is the request does have to be mutual, right? You can't just find out someone's going to Michigan and say, ooh, I'm going to live with them, put their name on the application and send it in, right? They also have to request you too. But there are a few different options. So you can choose either live in a single room, a double room, or a triple room. Single will be the most expensive. It is a lot like renting an apartment, where the more people you have in the room, the less you all pay to live in that particular room. And you also have 2 bathroom choices. You can request either a community style bathroom, which is shared with the hall, or you can request a suite style bathroom, which is shared with 1 or 2 other rooms. Now, at first glance, a suite style bathroom sounds better, right? Fewer people using it, it's connected to your room, it's probably going to be easier. However, before you make your decision, I do want to mention that if you select a community bathroom, the University of Michigan cleans it for you multiple times a day to standards set by the Centers for Disease Control. If you choose a suite style bathroom, you and your roommates are responsible for cleaning that bathroom, which, as you all know, means that bathroom is only going to get cleaned when your parents come to visit you. So that is something to keep in mind before you make your housing selections, and we will do our best to honor everything that you put in that request form in the housing application. We do reserve a number of single rooms too for students who need housing accommodations. So do know that singles are the hardest to get unless you have a need for a single room.
Awesome, thanks, Brian. I am going to answer a question. Someone asked a question about our career resources. Great question. There are plenty of career resources on Michigan's campus. So once again, definitely there are school-wide resources, right? So the University of Michigan has a career center accessible to every single student. They're going to give you resume help. They even have a wardrobe so that they can lend out clothes for interviews if you're looking for that. They also have mock interview help. They have someone that can kind of help you with the job search. They also have many curated engines for you to maybe connect with some alums that you're interested in doing the same thing they're doing, or just would like to do an informational interview with them. They have certain job boards that are open only to University of Michigan students. So no matter what you're doing, you're going to have a solid career resource through us. You also will probably have a more specific career resource through whatever program you are pursuing on our campus. So for example, the College of Engineering also has their own career resources. And this is going to be, they put on a giant career fair, and every single company that's looking for some type of engineer is going to come and recruit students there. And that is how a ton of our students get both summer internships and post-graduation job offers. Another example would be the Ross School of Business. They also host their own career fair. They also have different recruiting events specific to Ross students. Even if you're in the School of Music, Theater, and Dance pursuing a certain talent-based major there, they have their own career center as well, and it is staffed by people who have been professionals in some sort of artistic field, so that they actually know what you need to be putting on specifically an artistic resume, what you need to do in those sorts of interviews, so it gets really specialized. Another thing I want to highlight, this is primarily through LSA. LSA does have the Opportunity Hub. This is a great resource for students because it is kind of that gap filler to give you some resume boosts and experience before you are applying for jobs post-graduation. So the Opportunity Hub is entirely geared towards getting that experience during your undergraduate career. They're going to post certain jobs and have certain career fairs that are all geared towards summer internships or internships that you could be doing part-time during the school year, or even co-op internships that you would take a semester off and do. So they are really the piece that's connecting what you do during your undergrad to what you do post-graduation to make sure that you have enough experience to get hired right out of undergrad. So lots and lots of experiences and ways you can get connected to career resources on campus. Also would like to highlight that the Opportunity Hub has a lot of funding for students that they can apply for. It is grant funding that you would not have to pay back, and that is so that it's a little more accessible for students to be taking those sorts of internships that would traditionally be unpaid. So if you normally have to work in the summertime and you think internships are not an option for you, the Opportunity Hub makes that more accessible for every student.
All right, thanks, Chloe. So we probably have time for about 2 more questions right now before we run out. And the question that I want to tackle is about dual degrees. Is it possible to do that at the University of Michigan? And if so, how do you go about doing it? So the short answer is yes. At the University of Michigan, we are never going to limit you in the number of degrees or majors that you're pursuing. So if you decide to pursue 2 majors within one school or college, say you're an LSA and you want to major in both philosophy and economics, you can do that. We call that pursuing a dual major. Within the College of Literature, Science, and the Arts, most of their majors are designed to be completed within 2 years of coursework. So as long as you're being proactive and working with your advisor, it is very doable for you to complete 2 majors or even 3, depending on how ambitious you are, within a 4-year period. If you want to pursue two majors in different schools or colleges, we consider that, or we call that, a dual degree program. So to get a dual degree, you need to meet the degree requirements for both programs you're in. So if you're a student who wants to major in chemical engineering and chemistry in the College of Literature, Science, and the Arts, you need to meet all of the graduation requirements for both colleges. This is fairly common on campus, right? Depending on the combinations though, like if you decided to do something like musical theater and nuclear engineering, that might take you more than 4 years to finish because the College of Engineering doesn't offer summer courses and there's not going to be any overlap between those 2 programs. But again, if you're okay being on campus for 5 years, that's definitely something that you are able to do. And if it turns out that after your first year on campus, you decide, hey, you know, I thought I really wanted to do engineering, but I'd actually rather pursue an English degree, you certainly can. All you have to do is fill out a cross-campus transfer application. And just like dual degrees, this is also fairly common at the University of Michigan. though the criteria for switching between schools and colleges is going to vary based on the college itself. So if you're an LSA student who wants to switch into the College of Engineering, you'd fill out that cross-campus transfer application, and you would also need to meet the requirements for College of Engineering transfer students, which is taking some math and science courses. If you're an engineering student who wants to switch into LSA, or anyone who wants to switch into LSA, the only requirement to do so is that you be in good academic standing, which means having above a 2.0.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. I'm just going to take one more question that we received in the Q&A before we wrap up today. Someone did ask about financial aid. What kinds of scholarships do we offer? Are they only need-based, etc.? So we do offer both need-based and merit-based scholarships, and it is very easy to apply. All you need to do is fill out your FAFSA and your CSS profile, as Brian was talking about earlier. You do need to submit those documents to our Office of Financial Aid, and although they do talk about financial need, this is also what qualifies you for all of our need-based scholarships. This is going to qualify you for almost every single funding opportunity at the University of Michigan, but you should also just keep an eye out should you be admitted. Sometimes, for example, LSA will send out an email with an application to apply to just a few of their scholarships. This is only like 3 or 4, which in the scheme of things, a vast majority of them are held through the Office of Financial Aid, but you could qualify yourself for just a couple more merit-based scholarships by applying directly through your unit. So definitely keep an eye out for that, but the first step and the most important step is filling out your FAFSA and your CSS and submitting it directly to the Office of Financial Aid. Okay, so it does look like we are at, we're at time today, so I'll go ahead and turn it back over. But again, feel free to email both me or Brian if you guys have any sort of questions, and thank you so much.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for your participation today for the University of Michigan session. I know I learned a lot just about their university and the community. It all sounds really wonderful. So once again, thank you for joining us. When you close the window today, so when you exit this Zoom meeting, there'll be a little link to a quick survey. It's just a quick 4-question survey. So we'd really appreciate any feedback you have for us. And then just know that this is only one of the sessions that we are hosting with OACAC. So go ahead and check out all of the sessions at oacac.org. And then once again, this session was recorded, so you can absolutely go back and rewatch it if you have extra questions, or just contact the Michigan reps yourself if you have extra questions. And then all of the other sessions that we have done are also been recorded, so you can absolutely access those at oacac.org as well. And that's about all we've got for you all. Have a great day, y'all. Bye.